Hey everyone, and welcome back to Abyssine. In February of 1994, three young guys decided to explore a cave with zero gear. And yeah, you can probably guess that things were bound to go south. One of them felt something was off and turned back. But hours went by, and the other two didn't come out. What he didn't know was that his friends were going through the worst nightmare of their lives inside that cave. It was February 13th, 1994. The cold was biting in southeastern Kentucky, with temperatures barely climbing above freezing. On a twisting road near Lake Cumberland, three teenagers from Cincinnati were getting ready for an adventure, exploring the cave system at Sloan's Valley. Brandon Conlon, Joe Van Eaton, and Daniel Hume, all 18, had driven nearly 3 hours to check out this underground maze stretching for miles beneath forested hills. None of them had any real experience with caving. As for preparation, there was basically none. They brought a single basic flashlight, casual clothes, and a whole lot of excitement. No helmets, no backup lights, no food. They didn't even bother dressing warmly, even though cave temps in that region usually stay around 55 degrees Fahrenheit year-round. The three stepped into the cave together, leaving behind the icy winter air and diving into pitch black. Not even half an hour in, Daniel Hume bailed. He said he had a bad feeling and turned around. Brandon and Joe kept going, promising to be back in a couple of hours. Outside, Daniel returned to the car, turned the heat on, reclined the seat, and kept his eyes on the cave entrance. Hours went by, the sun went down, still no sign of his friends. Inside, Brandon and Joe were in high spirits, amazed by the limestone formations and caught up in the thrill. The only flashlight they had threw shaky shadows across the walls as they wandered deeper and deeper through the tunnels. They didn't mark their path, didn't keep track of time, and had zero sense of direction. Each turn led them further in. Meanwhile, Daniel stayed in the car. Every so often he'd sit up, glance at the entrance, call out once for his friends, then slide back into the warmth of the heater. He didn't try to flag anyone down, never pulled out his cell phone, didn't go looking for help. Back in the cave, things were starting to go downhill. Their planned 2-hour adventure had already stretched too long, and the paths were getting more and more confusing. The twists and forks looked familiar but always led somewhere else. Still, there was one comfort. Daniel knew where they were. Surely, they thought, if they didn't come out soon, he'd go get help. Night passed, the sun came up, Daniel woke up in the car, windows fogged up. He wiped a small patch clear and looked out toward the cave, stretched his legs, walked around a bit, then got back in and sat down. No calls, no help. Inside the cave, things got worse. The flashlight started to die, flickering, then dimming, until it finally gave out completely. Total darkness. They couldn't even see their own hands in front of their faces. They yelled for help, but their voices were swallowed up by the tunnels. They groped at the walls, hoping to find their way back, but it felt endless. The chill, once tolerable, now sank deep into their bones. No food, no water, no energy. They huddled together for warmth, still convinced rescue was coming. Daniel had to have called for someone, right? A second night fell. The temperature dropped even lower. Rain turned into hail. Meanwhile, Daniel occasionally stirred in the car, adjusted his seat, and fell back asleep. Later, he would admit he spent more than 30 hours just dozing in the car while his friends were lost and freezing in total darkness. At no point did he call for help. Not once. Inside the cave, Brandon and Joe had completely lost track of time. They were starving, dehydrated, and barely able to move from the cold. They stopped walking, just stayed in one spot, trying to save energy, calling out every now and then in case someone might hear. Their only hope was still the belief that Daniel had called someone, that help was on the way. That trust was what kept them sane. On the second day of their disappearance, Daniel finally left the car and stopped by a local store. While chatting with the clerk, he casually mentioned that his friends were still inside the cave. His tone was so relaxed it raised some eyebrows. A few nearby locals overheard and instantly realized the situation was serious. When they found out the teens had been in there since the day before, one of them didn't hesitate. They called for rescue right away. The search effort kicked off fast. Experienced cavers in the area joined emergency crews. They went in with everything needed. Helmets with headlamps, backup lights, first aid kits, food, water, radios. Deep in the cave, Brandon and Joe started to hear sounds. At first they thought they were hallucinating, but then the sounds got louder. Voices calling their names. Soon, they saw a light approaching. Less than 2 hours after the rescue team entered the cave, they found the boys just 400 feet from the entrance. They were clinging to each other, confused, weak from hunger and thirst. They had spent over 30 hours in total darkness, surviving only on the hope that someone would come for them. After getting some food and water, they rested a bit and were able to walk out on their own. They stepped back into daylight and had to shield their eyes, which had adjusted to the pitch black. Daniel was nearby, watching the whole thing with the same weird calm he'd shown the entire time. When asked why he didn't call for help, his answer was baffling. I didn't want to cause a panic in case they came out on their own. As if the risk of his friends dying was less important than bothering someone unnecessarily. The story quickly spread in the local community. Some people just chalked it up to a string of bad decisions made by unprepared teens, but others couldn't shake off how disturbingly passive Daniel had been. Cold, detached, or maybe something else? Why did he leave the cave so early? Why didn't he try to get help, not even once, in almost 2 days? What exactly was he doing all that time? According to him, just sleeping in the car. Brandon and Joe only found out the full story after they were rescued. The shock was obvious. They had trusted Daniel. They thought he'd be the one to save them. But it was strangers, total outsiders acting out of real concern, who actually stepped in. That realization left a lasting impact on what they thought friendship and trust meant. No crime was ever proven, so Daniel was never charged with anything. Brandon and Joe physically recovered, but those close to them say something changed, and it wasn't just because of the time spent in the dark. The story eventually faded from the news, becoming another warning about the dangers of entering caves unprepared. But in the local caving community, the questions linger, especially about Daniel's behavior during those 2 long days. Sloan's Valley Cave is still there today, silent, unmoved by what happened. Its darkness hides not just centuries of geological history, but maybe also the real reason Daniel Hume chose not to act. The 3 of them drifted apart after that. None of them ever went back to that cave. Every now and then, someone finds lone footprints near the entrance. They stop right at the edge where daylight fades into black, as if someone was thinking about going in, but changed their mind. Whether they're searching for answers or trying to escape them remains, like so much of this story, a mystery. With a friend like that, who needs enemies, right? I honestly wonder how he didn't think it was weird they were gone for that long. If you thought this story was wild, wait until you see the one popping up on your screen right now. It also starts out as a simple adventure but ends in an even darker way. Hit that like button and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. It really helps me out. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.